Okay, thank you so much, Tricia, for joining us. How are you doing over on the East Coast in New York?
I am great, thank you. How are you? We're in the midst of a little snowstorm right now. I'm excited.
That's great. Yeah, I lived in many different places and not somewhere that snows and is cold consistently. So my mind and body is getting used to the idea of shoveling snow all the time, changing the heating, wearing a couple more pairs of clothes. It's interesting, but I'm working on it. But thank you so much for joining us on the show. I'd love to just jump in right away and talk about your journey into within the world of healing and how you became an empath.
All right. It was about 10 years ago. Um, I love to be around people. I love to, very extroverted, although I've learned I really need my me time and downtime from this journey. It was like right around September, and it was almost as if I woke up one morning and I just was. There was no emotion. I wasn't feeling anything. I was just there. I was going through motions, and I'm like, what is like? I remember thinking, what is going on? I am not good. I'm not bad. I was literally just existing, and I didn't get it. And I was like, all right. And then about a month and a half later, around the holidays, it was like the pressure cup, the top to the pressure cooker blew off. And all the years of shoving down emotions, of resisting and ignoring and not dealing with it came to a boiling point. I was a sobbing mess. I was a hot mess. It was like I would go from one emotion to the next, to the next, to the next. It was total insanity. And I remember my husband kept saying, what happened? What's the matter with you? And I'm like, I don't know. And that was my response. I don't know. And this went on for a good 2 months. And I mean, Thanksgiving through New Year's of almost every day sobbing. And I would go to work and run to the ladies' bathroom and hide in a stall and cry. And I'm like, all right, I finally just I couldn't stomach myself. I couldn't stomach looking at myself. And the level of anxiety of what was coming next. Why is this happening? Not sleeping. It was like my body was completely depleted. And yet these emotions just kept coming up and bubbling over. And I remember saying to the universe, not my proudest moment, but I remember saying, I've had it. I can't do this anymore. I would rather you take my life in the middle of the night because this is not me. This is not who I am. And this uncontrollable sobbing and anxiety and depression, I can't do it. So I remember the next day and I was like, damn, I woke up. And I'm like, so you've got a bigger plan for me, I pray, and don't know what it is, but you need to help me because I felt like I was going crazy and the men in white coats were going to come take me away. And on top of that, I was hearing voices in my head. I was creating stories too to make sense of all the emotions I was feeling. Like, why was I anxious? Why was I sad? Why was I angry? And everything in between. And it was like I would bring up stuff from the past, or I would create stories for the future and talk about misery upon misery. Like, I hid. Nobody heard from me. Um, I just, and it was like I'm home, and I was just a mess, a royal mess.
Wow, yeah, I mean, emotions and those kind of like ruminating thoughts through stressful periods of time. I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's
Mm.
such a scary time because there's this insane disconnect between the person who you know you are and the person that you're currently internally experiencing. And yeah, like to isolate yourself and to kind of like hide away that person because that's not you is a supernatural thing to do. I think is to hide yourself from those other people that
Yeah.
know you for you, but you're obviously going through a lot of different things, a lot of different changes, and you're starting to maybe exhibit and become a different personality, and that's a scary thing for you because that's not you.
Yeah. And I questioned that. I really did. I was questioning, what happened to me? Why am I like this? Like all of these questions that are kind of, if you're not paying attention, then you're not hearing those answers for yourself. So that anxiety level got super high to the point that I actually called the doctor and I was like, I don't know what else to do, but I'm a royal mess. And I explained somewhat going on because I figured if I told him that I was hearing voices in my head, I would have the men in white coats at my door. And by no means am I being facetious or funny. That is exactly where I was at. And they put me on antidepressants, and that didn't help either. But when I said to the universe, I'm like, help me figure this out because I can't do this. And that's when I started getting phone calls. If you believe in, God, universe, source energy, I don't care what it is, and you start asking for help and being open to receive that help, you'd be surprised what comes back. And that's when I started getting people randomly contacting me through Facebook and email, saying, I haven't seen you, what's going on? Or this was the most interesting. I got a message for you. I need to deliver it. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but at this point I'm open to anything.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so you've gone through this, let's call it a 2 month episode, and a lot of things going on. You approach the conventional medical system and classic pharmaceutical prescription, um, and that doesn't really work for you. And then you start getting these messages from people, and that kind of what does that do for you? Does that start shifting your mind a little bit? Do you recognize that you've got support and you've got this support system, so you're not completely alone in this?
It wasn't until I started getting on the phone with people and sharing with them, because back then I was like, I can't let anybody know, no, I'm losing my mind, because that was my biggest thing, shame and embarrassment. Don't tell anybody that you spend time crying, or you wait for your husband to go to bed so you can let it all out, or you're hiding at work in a stall. Like, this to me was, this was not me. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to share. Now I share it everywhere because people need to know.
Yeah,
Like, if you don't understand what's going on, this is your body saying, all of those years you took this on and all those years that you hid from it, we need to let it go. So I had people, somebody said to me, I'm an empath. And I'm like, I don't even understand what that word means. And she says, I got these messages. And I remember thinking when I hung up the phone, I don't know who's crazier right now, her or me. That's exactly what I said. And I told my husband this, and I went to bed because I just was totally drained. I think he waited for me to get up the next morning, and he's like, I booked a ton of websites for you. You need to go on. I emailed you all of them. You need to go on. You need to do this research because, Tricia, this is you to a T. So,
interesting.
yeah.
Good for your husband. That sounds like great husband work.
Yes. Yeah. Because when I was done, I was like, yeah, I don't even, like, I thought she was crazy and I was crazier. And when I told him, he's like, okay. And he's like, started doing the research. And I remember saying, all right. So I remember reading it and going, oh my God. All right. We have a starting point. We have something.
Yeah.
So
So
it was really,
what were you reading? Like what was the context of what you were reading that was helping you recognize that what you were reading was kind of describing yourself and what you were going through?
this emotional overwhelm. Like, I went to the mall during Christmas time, and I swear to God, I was not in that mall 10 minutes before the tears started. And I literally turned around and went running out of the mall saying, I can't handle this. I don't know what this is, but I just can't handle this. And I didn't care who got presents that year. I was done. And my husband was running after me. He's like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I get it. I just can't. So being in large places was doing it to me. It was this sense of constantly knowing people on a deeper level that I ignored for years because I didn't trust my intuition. I didn't trust the energy I was reading. And that was like bubbling up big time. And then I started to remember growing up. I remember going to Disney World, Disneyland. I don't remember which one. It was in Florida. And I pretty much cried every day. It was too many people. It was this level of like uncertainty and anxiety. And as a kid, I didn't understand what I was feeling. So here I am, my parents are yelling at me. Why are you being so sensitive? Stop it. And, and on top of that, like, this makes sense to me now. And on top of that would be, I would cry from 4th grade to 12th grade every few weeks of the school year. Like the first few weeks, I was afraid of dying. Like, what kid do you know is afraid of dying? So like all of these things started to make sense to me. And I was putting it into place, and I was like, I get it. I totally get this now. I understand. Like, these were things that were tipping me off as I looked back. And as I realized, my sensitivity to light, my sensitivity to smell. People would say to me, you're a hound dog. How do you smell that? And I'm like, are you kidding me? How do you not smell that? Like things, simple things that I always took as normal was not normal.
Wow, interesting. So what was from kind of that point where you're researching more, and you're kind of, it sounds like you're connecting a lot more dots throughout your whole life with what you've always been experiencing with what you're doing now. What's the journey then to becoming an empath coach, and and getting into that path?
I was desperate. So I started to join empath groups. I wanted to understand what everybody else was going through. Was it the same as me? And I was in these groups, and we all did the woe is me. We all did the victimhood. Oh my God, all these emotions, I'm feeling everything. And let's not add what was going on in the world at any given moment with governments, with earth-related issues like fires and hurricanes and tornadoes, because that also impacts us on a big level. So I was in these groups, and I'm like, oh my God, we're all, this is it. And what a huge turning point for me was, first off, I remember clear as day that day. I wasn't having a great day to begin with. And this woman asked a question. I don't remember what it was, but some other woman came in and she says, I have been happy. Once I understood this gift, I went out to make myself happy, and I love it. And I went, huh, that's cool. And I watched everybody attack her. She left the group. I left the group. I friended her because I was like, I want to eat what she's eating.
Sure, yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I'm going to create my own group. And that's exactly what I did. And that is exactly how it started, because as I started to build my own happiness and understanding this gift on a deeper level, instead of allowing it to take me to my knees, as I'm going to build myself up, I'm going to create my own happiness. No idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And I want people who want to be happy in my group. And that is how it started.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit about the group that you started.
God, it's going back years now. I know it's no longer active, but I chose to do a little bit of a different path. And I just remember sharing lots of tools, sharing when people were having a bad day. Let's talk it out, let's hash it out, let's figure it out, and let's create things that resonated and worked with people so that they got past that victimhood and that woe is me. And some people were all on it, or they were willing to do it. And then we always have, there's always people who love being happy in their unhappiness and being happy in that. Let's have a bash session because that's where I'm currently at. And um, sometimes we need that to let that go. But when it becomes that constant, it's not helping you, or anybody else around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to know a little bit more specific about what an empath coach is. I'm aware of many different wonderful, incredible practitioners out there. I've certainly never met an empath coach before, so I'm very interested to kind of know. Maybe you can take me through like what a session might look like. Maybe a typical individual that will come in. Kind of how it looks like coming to see you as an empath coach.
Well, I first find out where they're at. And one of the biggest things with empath is understanding their own energy. Do they know their own energy, or are they just sucking everything up and being reactive to everything instead of responsive? Then we create different tools so that they can understand their own energy. I make sure everybody has practices and rituals that when they get up in the morning, they're not starting their day. Because I find that when I get up in the morning and I don't have time for my rituals, my day seems to spiral out of control. Whereas I make sure I get up and I have my specific rituals. And one of them is drinking my coffee, journaling, having some peace and quiet, being grateful, right by my bed. And I tell my clients to this too, put right by your bed, I choose to be happy. What are my thoughts first thing in the morning? And what am I grateful for? It's like we're already focusing instead of rushing into, oh my God, I got this appointment. I got to do this. I got to go to the doctor's. I got to go get food or whatever our day holds for us. Let's step back. And what are we doing? What are we looking for? What are we grateful for? And that sometimes takes a while to retrain our brains. We're creating new neural pathways. So these are things I go over with my clients. What are you starting your day off as? What's your intention for the day? And I love this. What is your feeling for the day? And I stop people go, what? So for example, I'm a big believer in internal peace, inner peace. And I have rocks that have the word peace on it. And I put it in my pocket or I leave it on my desk. And anytime I'm coming out of that peace because I'm, rushing on that hamster wheel or something's just come into my environment that is creating a little bit of havoc, I will step back and say, how can I bring peace back into my life? So these are things we start doing. A big thing for empaths are people pleasers. They're always wanting to help and take care of others, leaving their self-care at the bottom of the, very bottom of their foundation or at the bottom of the ladder. And that does not work. And the reason I say that is because I did that. I was the biggest people pleaser. I would always try to rush and fix and help everybody else. And that got me ill. That created cancer in my body. And that, above all, I think was a real game changer for me in my life. So that is one of the things I tell my clients. You need self-care. Self-care is a very big thing, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not helping your family. You're not helping your clients. You're depleting yourself and your energy. And God forbid it does manifest in an illness. And hopefully it's just a cold or a stomach flu and not ignoring yourself completely and the warning signs that you get some serious illness. So these are the things that we'll go through. Boundaries, and it's interesting. I said to one of my clients, she told me she was completely depleted. And I said, tell me about your day. And she told me, and literally she went from client to client to client. I mean, barely 5 minutes in between. And I said, when do you use the bathroom? And she's like, what? And I'm like, how are you telling the universe that you're worthy of all these things if you're not even taking care of yourself for basic needs? And that was a huge eye opener because they were like, oh my God, creating more space between clients, clearing energies, which is very, very, you know, important for empaths, taking care of themselves. So these are the things that are different topics that I deal with my clients.
Yeah, so it sounds like so many different people come in, and I really love what you said about, at the beginning of the day, before you even getting out of bed, you're putting some kind of key words and key thoughts and key emotions into your body to start kind of that foundation of like what's going on, and whether that's joy or happiness or gratitude. Thinking about those things, like how you want to like fundamentally be during your day, and you can always kind of like resort back to that, rather than, we get out of bed at the same side, we get out of the bed at the same side, we go put the coffee machine on, we go brush our teeth, we get our food ready, we do all these very, very subconscious things without even thinking about like what type of emotion we kind of choose to exhibit, and being aware of that. And if we do start to feel like anxieties and worries or anything like that, we can always just remember to come back to kind of like our key word, or our like mantra, you could say. um I got a question, just hearing you talking about empaths and what they experience. It kind of sounds to me like it's an unknown unconscious superpower to be an empath, and you've got this phenomenal ability. And I just imagine like certain superhero stories where they wake up and they've got these phenomenal superpowers, and how scary that would be. It would be pretty cool, but also like insanely scary to start recognizing that you had all these things going on for you that you maybe weren't aware of before. And that kind of, when you were talking about empaths, that's kind of superpower, and that like super experience that you might have, is, it sounds like if you weren't aware of that and you didn't have the tools to kind of control it, it would be a really scary, overwhelming type of thing. But when you do use the tools that you're talking about, and you research a little bit and you kind of do some self work, it sounds like you can become a really, really powerful individual and support and help the many other people who experience this on like a high superpower level. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. Um, with empaths, once you understand your own energy and you can talk to your clients, or you can talk to anybody, as a matter of fact, and you can actually feel what they're feeling on a level that you're like, oh my God, this person's really in pain, or oh my God, this person, you know, doesn't is unable to see the forest from the trees because they're in their head so badly. And you can offer, if they're asking, offer suggestions, offer ideas, offer solutions. Um, it was years ago. I was at the bottle return with my husband, and the room was packed. I remember it being packed. And this random lady walks right up to me and she goes, I really need to talk to you. And I'm like, and I'm looking around going, me? I'm like, okay. And she tells me this horrific story. And I'm like, I really have nothing to say except I'm so sorry you had to go through something like this, because it was never in my experience. And she just said, thank you so much. I don't have any bottles to return, but I came in here. I felt the need to come talk to you, tell you the story, and I feel so much better. And she walked out, and the whole place is like just staring at me. And I'm like, my husband goes, this happens all the time. Like, and as I look back, I remember so many people I never met in my life would come up to me and tell me their stories. And some were just amazing. I loved listening to the elderly generation come up and tell me their life story. It's, and these things that they experienced, and they would pat my hand and go, thank you so much, sweetheart. And they'd walk away like, I feel good. And I took that for granted. And that's a superpower. Our energy is actually helping them in whatever way they need, whether it's just somebody even listening to them and acknowledging that they're there and hearing them. So this is a superpower. Absolutely. I mean, you can, if you have clients and they're telling you a story and you know that they're lying, but that's not even the right word because they don't even understand it themselves. They're trying to not see what's going on. They're trying to block the reality. So you can actually come down and be like, all right, what about this? Or have you thought of that? Or maybe it's this, giving them options to look at to open this up to a broader perspective. There's a huge transformation that is available to people that, we don't even realize how we can help people. And forget that, even just being able to feel things for other people, and happiness and joy and excitement are just as much as the negative emotions. Empaths don't ever question the positive ones, but being around somebody who is so excited and happy makes you just as excited and happy for them, and you're right there with them. The same thing as when they're just so distraught and torn up. Just holding their hand sometimes is all they may need, whether you know them or not. Like, I've seen people who are so, like, I'm like, oh my God, I feel their pain. And I'll just say hello. And they're like, oh my God, somebody sees me. And I'm like, hi. And they go, oh, hi. And they could see like they lighten up a little bit. So is this a superpower to me? Absolutely.
Love it. That's great. In regards to, you just mentioned a few examples of situations that could be very overwhelming for people. Do empaths experience? I'm just trying to putting the empath and like a larger group setting, whether that's at Disney World or the market. Where there's actually a lot of people, a lot of energy coming together, and we talk on this show a lot about kind of like the invisible forces that control our world.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of everything we experience is energy, but unfortunately we can't see it, so we don't really
Mm-hmm.
believe it, or we're not aware of it. But you go to I think of like for myself, like going to like a soccer game or going to a sports event. People are there in a very, very positive manner, and it's electric. Being in that type of environment it's addicting, it's electric, it's wonderful. Everyone's connected, everyone's there to have fun, and it's wild. You get tingles. But going to a larger setting sometimes where it's not maybe on that huge positive like level that everyone's there for, an empath going into an environment where there's like a lot of mixed emotions happening, is that where like the kind of overwhelm comes from, because you're getting it off other people?
The start of COVID and quarantine, that was horrific. Hospitals, funeral homes, airports, airplanes, and believe it or not, grocery stores. And these are things that I've talked to other empaths as well as myself have had experiences with all of these things. And you can definitely get overwhelmed. I went into, when I first realized I was an empath, and I was trying to deal with all of this, I went into New York City and I could have kicked myself over and over and over again because I couldn't wait to get on the train to come home. It was, I was completely overwhelmed. And when I get overwhelmed, it either affects me emotionally, it'll affect me mentally, where my judgment is non existent, my decision making is confused, my clarity, there is none, you know. And it's funny because I've done this with, I even did it with a friend of mine, and she's like, what happened to you? Like, she just went, she was asking me, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I really, she's like, it was funny. And I'm like, oh my God. So these are different ways that it absolutely can affect us. However, this is where self-care practices come in. This is where grounding practices come in. This is where we use clearing techniques immediately so that we could still live our lives and not be that deer in the headlight fear. Oh my God, I have this uncertainty. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. And we're able to still function and move on. And one of the things I absolutely, utterly believe 100%, the happier we are as individuals, the easier emotions flow through us and stop, like, that stops getting us. And we're like, oh my God, what is that? So that's really important to me. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm not going to the hospital, or I'm not going to grocery shopping. And then it was also being okay with that and being like, all right, I'm not having a good day, not doing these things. And at the same time, it is knowing when to say no, and it's knowing when to say, I need this recharge and downtime for myself so that I can go later. And for me, I know going to the grocery store on a Saturday or Sunday is no. Going to like for me, I'll do it early in the morning or I'll do it later at night. So like these are things that I've learned from myself, and these are things that people have to experience and learn for themselves as well, so they know when to do something and when not to. you know I had a friend go on an airplane, and she's like, she's messaging me, she's like, I am sitting on this airplane, she goes, I'm ready to jump out the window. And I says, people are afraid to fly. There's tremendous anxiety with airplanes. And she's like, help me. So I said, okay. I says, where's your anxiety level? She goes, forget it, it's through the roof. I said, okay. One of the tools that I like to share and that I shared with her is knowing what you're picking up is yours or not. And when I first started to use this tool, it was like insane because it came up like 95% of the day. And you're right, everything is energy, and we feel everything because emotions are energy in motion. And when we also check in about what we're feeling within our bodies, we have to check in with our minds and what's it saying about what we're picking up, and how we can change our belief systems and create new neural pathways to create those new beliefs as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. That example on the plane is wonderful, because I think the majority of the anxious thoughts that we have and the anxious emotions that we feel, yeah, like a fraction of them are actually like either valid or even not us.
Mm-hmm.
So what a wonderful tool to be able to, in the moment, be able to start, rather than suppressing and just purely experiencing something like anxiety, we can start maybe assessing it a little bit and digesting some thoughts and kind of getting rid of them and kind of getting to the root of it all. I think that's a really wonderful tool. Thanks for sharing that. With your work, can you tell us a little bit more about how it can support the mental health and wellness of your clients a little bit more?
Yeah, a lot of my clients are overwhelmed. They're stressed out. They're trying to do everything for everybody, so they're anxious. They are their energy's depleted, and it's like if we don't stop and start taking care of ourselves, it's going to again manifest in an illness. So, the first off, I'm a big believer of the word no, because when we continuously take on and try to do for so many other people, and our plate is full, and not only is it full, it's overflowing, and now we're stressing out and we're pushing ourselves even more, giving ourselves less downtime, giving ourselves even less sleep. I don't know about anybody else, when I don't have enough sleep, I am crabby and I am cranky and I have very little patience. So now you're adding that onto it. So you're trying to suppress that you're already there and trying to, yes, okay, I'll do it. Yes, between clients, between family members, between friends, you're trying to be everything for everyone. And this is where we start with my clients, and I'm like, no, no, because if you don't, what is your mental health? You're miserable. You're at the point where you're like, I'm depleted, I'm tired, and I'm just ready to give up. And it's like, oh boy, you don't want to be there, because that is a very bad place to be for everybody. And I know so many empaths who say, I'm so full of anxiety and I don't want to do anything anymore. And it ends up coming down that they don't even want to do anything for themselves. And that's a bad thing for all of us when we're at that place where it's deep and dark. So it is learning to say no. It is learning to have those boundaries that honor and protect yourself in a way that creates space for you to be able to breathe. It is learning to have that time to be, I'm having a day full of anxiety and I'm okay with that, instead of when you feel anxiety, you become more anxious because you're feeling that anxiety. And then it just compounds very quickly to a point where it's like, I don't even know which end is up. And I've done it. When I say these things, I've been there and I've done it where it's like that even breathing almost hurts because it's like your chest is tight and you're breathing from your upper chest instead of through your stomach. So these are physical reactions that you're having to that level of anxiety. And it's like that fear comes in now because now it's like, I can't breathe. And like you're rushing to get some cold, either cold water or some cold air on your face. So, and I do speak from experience as well when I say all these. And it's that boundary piece is important. That self-care piece is even more important. And that communicating your needs, because we're so used to saying yes to everybody else, we say no to ourselves. So now it's about saying, I need help with this, with your family and friends. I need help with that. I'm not, and being okay to say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today and I am not doing well. So can we please like communicate better? And I remember doing this with my husband in the beginning, and he's like, my wife's crazy. And I was okay with that because he learned to communicate better with me. And because if he came home from work and he had a rough day himself, I was clingy. And he would be like, he would get upset and like he would just pull back and I would try to cling on harder.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he would be able to say, walk in the door and say, I had a really rough day and I need to just give myself some time. And I would be like, and I'd be like, all right. So I went and created a supportive environment for myself where I could go speak to a friend or speak to somebody and say, I'm not having the best of days either right now. And just kind of have that conversation and say, I feel so much better because now I let it all out, all of that. And a big part of that mental piece is we create these stories in our head that 90% of them are not true.
Yeah, we have a big issue, I think, in our culture of completely giving our energy, our resources away.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously we can do things to. I like to think of it as like a like a cup of resources. And we only have a kind of certain amount a day, and like sleeping is going to restore that, and eating well is going to restore that. Meditating, eating well, hanging out and communicating with friends is all going to like help restore yourself and bringing energy back towards you. But we have this culture of mass distraction,
Oh, yes.
and we have a culture where it's go go go, it's busy busy busy. If you're not busy, you're not successful in society, right? If you're not always doing stuff. But this is so incredibly depleting, and we're doing this on a very unconscious level because we're kind of like our bodies are just going through the world subconsciously doing stuff. And to replenish and refill that cup of resources, we have to one become really conscious about what we're doing with our time and our energy, and then we have to put that into practice. It's not enough to just know, we have to know how. So having tools like that to recognize where your partner's at, and what you can do to create that supportive nature for you, whether that's to go and do meditation or go and do some yoga or make yourself a cup of coffee and stare out of the window. All these things are so much more, shifting that energy from in to out to in. And I've experienced over the last 4 or 5 years how powerful for me meditation and yoga is for that. And how even just like I have to close my eyes and shut these things out, and really kind of focus on my breathing to become really present, to kind of block my mind going into the future or my mind going into the past, where we have all these emotions attached to those experiences, which end up be depleting even further. So you can deplete yourself in your own mind, no doubt about that. But when we start to become conscious and put these practices into place, we start to re-energize ourselves. We start to become connected to actually who we really, really are, and it's energizing. It's really that's powerful. It's recharging, and it's without question a tool that I think everyone should have, and it should be something we should be even teaching into our kids, in schools.
Yes.
But when you're an empath and you're unaware of that fact, these things that something that might make me feel anxious might make someone else go into like a panic attack. And yeah, it can be really, really devastating to not just yourself but to the people around you.
Yes. Totally, totally agree with everything that you just said. It's so important. Like I meditate every day. We gotta get out of our head. And I've had clients say I can't meditate. And I said, do you walk? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, walk and pay attention to nature around you. Or one of the things I love to do is there's a table right behind me, and I rock paint. I paint rocks and shells and some other really easy technique is I'll put a fire on YouTube and black out my whole screen with the fireplace, and I'll just sit and zone out watching the fire, and it's completely relaxing. I mean, you could do that with nature scenes, water scenes, whatever you love. And that's another way to meditate without, like, people like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools out there that are available. You mentioned on your website um, about learning what emotions do not belong to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what emotions do and don't belong to us?
I've created a tool called the Empath symbol, and mine is a bear. I happen to like large animals, and there are no bears on Long Island, so I can't easily see one. And what I did was, this was part of my healing process, was learning the energies. And I was given this empath symbol. Like when I said to the universe, I'm like, please help me figure this out then. And during my meditation in the morning, I would say to the universe, please show me my bear when what I am feeling does not belong to me. Now, you can do anything. You can have flowers, instruments, mammals, fish, places as your symbol, because people get caught up in, should it be my spirit animal? It could be whatever you want it to be. So I just happen to love large animals. And I remember the first few days of utilizing it. I went into Best Buy over here, and I was already getting antsy and just like, all right, something's going on in the air. And on every single TV was a bear. And I did not trust that that's what that was for. So in my head, I said to the universe, okay, prove it to me. And some woman walked right by me saying lions and tigers and bears. I'm like, okay, I gotcha. I hear you loud and clear. And I realized that 90% to 95% of what we're feeling is just so much of what's going on around us or in the collective. People are like, I'm home, I'm protected. And I'm like, nope, not in the four walls of your house. It's not. It's energy and motion. You're still going to feel people's emotions that don't have to be connected to you either. And I remember I was sleeping one night, and I literally jumped out of bed at like 2:33 in the morning, and I was petrified. And I saw immediately I have a symbol also for collective consciousness. And I saw that symbol and I went, so I was able to calm myself down quickly. But I realized, I'm like, there is something going on in the world right now that is creating tremendous fear and terrifying people. And I finally went back to sleep. And the next morning I went online, and um, Italy had a volcanic eruption, earthquake. I don't even remember. It was 7, 8 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, that I double checked the times, and it was actually coinciding. And I'm like, wow. So you're definitely feeling everything constantly. It's just about, using the symbol to know it's not yours, trusting that the universe is got your back and will show you the symbol. I mean, I got symbols on TV. I would see it all the time. Like, I would never see bear commercials. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing them. A random person would email me a bear, and nobody knew about my bear in the beginning. I didn't tell anybody. And I would get emails of bear pictures. They're like, look at this, Tricia, isn't this cute? And it would be a bear. And I'm like, all right, you're using people to get me my message. And there would be times where I wasn't like I'd be like, all right, I'm feeling something. And then flash in my head would be a bear. I'm like, okay. And in the beginning, I was totally doubting Debbie. So I would ask for confirmation, and I would definitely get it. So that is a tool that I use to this day. I still use it. But as I've gotten more accustomed to my own energy, I don't need the bear to tell me, because my body will signal, you've got something here. Let's clear it. And that is like another big tool for empaths, is doing body meditations, and it's grounding your energy. And grounding can be outside with your feet in the grass, or currently, because it's too much snow out, one of the things I did was I created my very own grounding bowl. And this is filled with sand and shells. And I'll play with it when I'm stressed or I want to ground my energy. So you could do things to ground your energy that are easy. I'm all about quick and easy so that you can get back to your life. And then just kind of go through your body and feel, where are you tight? Where are you tense? What is bothering you? And not only what is bothering you, but where are you resisting? And for me, I know a big place is my stomach. And I actually, there's a certain spot on my stomach that I now know is saying, all right, I'm tight here. You've got something. So I'll pay attention. And I notice when, like you said, we are a society of push, 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 rush, 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 phone, 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 anything to keep us from being still, or from keep us to just sitting back and relaxing and being present to our own lives. And it's those times where we're rushing that uh, we don't even recognize. So my body will say, all right, Tricia, we got something. And there was one day, I remember I was at work. I woke up late. I didn't do any of my rituals. I did nothing. And I raced to go to work. The whole day was like just everything was just frazzled. And I remember rushing home. I left work late. I'm rushing home, almost got into a car accident, mind you. And in front of me, on the back of this person's car, was a big bear. I'm like, okay, all right.
That's really cool. I love the idea of symbolism and signs in the
Yeah.
world. And yeah, if you genuinely have something like that, that you have inside of your mind, and you couple that with an elevated emotion, you are absolutely, it's a wonderful tool to be able to recognize when, maybe we should slow down and use the tools that we've learned. And I really appreciate you sharing some of those tools with us today, and some really fine examples of how they can be really powerful really quickly. Because yeah, people, we feel emotions just instantaneously. We just immediately react to things. So having something in place to be able to learn to maybe respond rather than react a little bit, I think that's really can be really powerful and really help people through emotional periods, especially like the one we're all going through right now.
Mhm.
How can people connect with you, Tricia?
You can send me an email at Tricia@triciadica.com. You can find me on social media and send me a message. I'm on Instagram at Tricia Dyka, and I'm also on Facebook at Tricia Dyka. So you could definitely find me there as well. I'm always hopping around. So we can definitely send me an email or a direct message.
Perfect. Well, I'll put your website and I'll put your contact onto social media in the show notes of this episode. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you or learn more, they can do that. But I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Tricia. I learned a lot about empaths and emotions, and it's going to definitely make me feel a little bit more aware of like what I'm feeling, and also recognize that other people are going through lots of other different things as well, and it's important to be compassionate and hold space for that. So I really appreciate you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. This is True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.